Too much eating.
Thanks.
Okay, so as I say, I'm going to save Pepper's contributions to until he gets here. Zip right through these. They're interesting. So here's the agenda for today. We talked about Trump's health care team, and I use the word team advisedly. So there's some new stuff on that. There's new stuff on this geopolitics, a triangle developing between Russia, China, and the EU. We talked about China and the EU the last couple of weeks. And then we want to finish up on Leo, part two, some interesting developments. So more on Calley Means, the nominee to be Surgeon General. RFK Jr. was the one that brought her to Trump's attention. Trump says he doesn't know her. So she is a creation of RFK, and you could imagine that RFK is a creation of her in a way. She graduated from Stanford. As Jim pointed out last week, she embarked on a 5-year surgery residency program. She said she quit because she was disillusioned with traditional medicine, but Jim had found a source that said that she quit because of anxiety. So if she's anxious in a residency, she's about ready to be even more anxious if the Senate's going to debate her background. She works with her brother, Calley, and he describes himself as a wellness entrepreneur. And he helped RFK. He brokered the RFK's endorsement of Trump last summer, so we can thank him for that. And he's on Fox News a lot, talking about restricting SNAP benefits, food stamps, presumably to make them more healthy, although I'm not sure about that. We'll find out more as time goes by. And he and his sister have led the charge against fluoride in the drinking water. The sister, Casey, the nominee, has developed a personal health monitoring app called Levels, which is just basically monitoring blood sugar, which doctors do on a regular basis with diabetes. But she's used that for a business. But here's the disturbing part. She also makes money from dietary supplements, creams, and teas, and other, some might say snake oil stuff. She wrote a best-selling book. Yeah, Jim.
Full disclosure, her residency was at Oregon. And she completed 4.5 years of 5 years of a head and neck surgery residency, which is an interesting choice. But 4.5 years, almost completed it. And her residency director, who's now in Southern California somewhere, is the source for saying that she quit because of anxiety.
Okay. All right.
Just to clarify.
Yeah, thanks for those details. All right. She and her brother wrote this best-selling book. And here's the word for today. I learned what Damascene means. Damascene refers to the road to Damascus. And what was the road to Damascus? It's where Paul who had been persecuting Christians, finally realized he needed to be a Christian. The brother, Calley, as I said before, is a close buddy of RFK. He appeared on RFK's podcast, and now he's a top advisor um, uh, in Kennedy's capacity as Secretary of Health and Human Services. In fact, it was Kennedy's recommendation that Trump nominate his sister. Okay, so there have been some really interesting articles this week, and here's the best one. I'm really going to draw on this a lot. It's Michelle Goldberg, New York Times opinion columnist. And the title is catchy, Karma Comes for Kennedy. And what is the karma? What's the comeuppance that Kennedy is getting? And her article details that. And so what the karma is a civil war now between MAGA, we're all familiar with that, and MAHA, which Make America Healthy Again. And these two camps have very different views on what Trump should do. And this is the karma that's going to hit Kennedy and maybe even Trump. So Casey, as Goldberg says, is very new age. She has a weekly newsletter where she lets go, and she recently talked about a epiphany after watching Moana, the Disney kiddie cartoon centered Hawaii. And in it, she came to, after watching it, she came to the conclusion that women are lunar beings. And we've all thought about this 28-day moon cycle. But she takes it and rides it. She says that the world has resisted this obvious truth. She belittles the world's demands on women for constant productivity, endless yang energy at punishing speed. And she urged her readers to embrace the woo-woo, and we'll find out what that means. Goldberg says she's apocalyptic. She takes the fact that our fertility rate is dropping, and says that we're actually becoming infertile, and we're losing our minds. Goldberg has this interesting phrase. She's like a Cassandra speed reading the whole Earth catalog. She says, health is the tip of the iceberg. Our problem basically is a spiritual issue that we're facing, she said on this podcast. And we just have to recommit ourselves to life and to the awe and to connecting with the source. So we're getting into woo-woo territory. If we don't do that, we're headed for existential disaster. So yes, apocalyptic. A contradiction, interestingly, could it be that Goldberg asks that Trump is fostering an emerging hippie right, the Maha people. So the woo-woo is a version of the hippie right that we're all familiar with, the hippie left from the 60s. Many of us are. Most of us are. And so there's a contradiction is she hates the junk food that Trump loves. She dreads the ecological catastrophe, but Trump took us out of the Paris Accords. Um, and she yearns for achieving spiritual fulfillment, something that no one would accuse Trump of. Dr. Means feminine yin energy, does it complement Trump's endless yang energy or contradict it? That's the basic question that Goldberg asks. Um, so the Dr. Means is somewhat indiscriminate. She targets all processed food, foisted by the corrupt food conglomerate. And fair enough, but she goes further and links our food with not only infertility, but also Alzheimer's, depression, and erectile dysfunction. Um, and she's somewhat uncomfortable with the growing vaccine schedule for children. And I know what she means. I think all of us primary care docs do, is we're taking care of well babies when they come in their infant years, and they have to get an awful lot of vaccines now. But from my point of view, watching how medical practice has changed in primary care, the worst thing in the 60s and 70s was to face a kid with 105 fever and all the things you had to rule out, and how over my clinical practice, and I think us primary care docs would all agree how much easier it became to take care of sick kiddies. Then Means says, okay, vaccines maybe, but the mandates are criminal. And nobody in the first few days of the pandemic, when we were watching hospitals with gurneys in the hall, gurneys out the door, morgues overflowed. Nobody at that point was saying that mandates were criminal. And she's even suspicious of birth control pills. There is, and J.D. Vance is an example of that. Folks in MAGA world that are concerned about the dropping fertility, and they're called natalists because they want to increase our fertility, fecundity. Uh, Means, and this is where the split comes. She's mostly steered clear of Kennedy's debunked views on vaccines, and that's made her a target. So here is where the split and the Civil War is coming. Means is not sufficiently negative about vaccines, to her credit. Um, what she is for, though, once again, is the woo-woo, the lifestyles. All illnesses that can be reduced by lifestyle changes. And her thing is the medical industry is so bad and they profit from their treatment that patients need to be protected from them. So for her, access of care, like Obamacare, is a negative. It gets giving people into regular health care, primary care, is not so much a good. The other thing here was another little bit of snake oil. She sells energy bit algae tablets on her website. That's definitely the woo-woo. So here's the Civil War, and Goldberg says it's inevitable when you have a political coalition that builds in paranoia, distrust, um, and the chief example of that is Laura Loomer, who is the MAGA spokesman in this Civil War. And she reads Dr. Means' newsletter and belittles Dr. Means talking about finding love at 35, doing full moon ceremonies, and plant medicine. So this is MAGA looking at MAHA and making fun of them. And apparently, Dr. Means asked for help in sorting out this anxiety she was feeling by asking the trees for help. And Laura Loomer just jumps all over that, calls Means a crackpot, and says, without a trace of irony, the inmates are running the asylum. So Michelle Goldberg's done her homework and found some pretty entertaining moments in this looming civil war. And we've seen a civil war earlier between when you have a movement with conspiracy theorists. It's almost inevitable that you're going to have face-offs like between Musk and Bannon that we saw earlier a few months ago. Goldberg asks, have we fallen so far that Laura Loomer is a voice of reason? Well, no, because what Loomer's saying is that Dr. Means doesn't go far enough outside about vaccines. Laura Loomer's standard is to be politically correct about vaccines. You have to see them as agents of mass murder. That's where we are. And she also targets Means' brother, Calley, of diverting the important attention that needed to be paid to vaccines away to food. And Loomer accuses the Means, the siblings, of being highly platformed. Now, that's an accusation I was unfamiliar with. I guess that you're so much into social media, when if you're overdoing it, you're highly platformed. And so Dr. Loomer accuses Dr. Means of never being able to recommend natural cancer cures or remedies. And for some of us, well, okay, that's a point for Dr. Means. The Economist, their Lexington correspondent who comments on American politics, also targeted Dr. Means and the woo-woo. He points out if Means is approved, Democrats would worry that Trump, who's already taken away parts of our coalition of the working class and economic policies targeting the rich, if Trump now steals the female element that Dr. Means is presenting with her yin energy, then what will be left of the Democrat coalition? So an interesting point of view from The Economist. Now, there's another critic of the Mean siblings, and this is something new to me. I had to learn about RFK's running mate. Maybe some of you know his vice president running mate was Nicole Shanahan.
Oh,
Um,
right.
Ed, I think you're not muted. And she is a player because she was once married to Google's co-founder, Sergey Brin. And when they separated, she got $1 billion. So she was the one who bankrolled Kennedy. Google money bankrolled Kennedy indirectly. She was smart enough to also get a law degree from Santa Clara. Uh, and her special interest is to
Okay.
fund research to lengthen the human reproductive lifespan. She is half Asian. She had a Chinese mother. And she goes all out in attacking the Mean siblings.
Uh-huh.
Uh, Somebody's not muted. And so the she says that the siblings, there's something artificial and aggressive about them, and it reminds her of the movie, The Manchurian Candidate, who was a victim of brainwashing. And she has her own conspiracy theories, wondering about forces secretly trying to control Kennedy. So this paranoid style that's in the right wing, and we're seeing it emerge in MAGA versus MAHA. And she worries that these forces are even scarier than the CIA, and she feels that Casey Means is an imposter and possibly a plant. So that's how crazy things are. Yeah, Bob.
I know you're probably going to get to it, but where does Dr. Emmett Oz fit into this panoply of interesting characters?
Yeah, I haven't, I haven't reached. He's now the administrator of Medicare, and I haven't included him yet. I'll include him next week. But for those of you that aren't familiar with him, he I think was a surgeon, and he gained fame on as a right wing health advisor, holding forth on podcasts and Fox News about a kind of out of mainstream medical theories. Uh,
Actually, he had a lot on PBS as well.
oh, did he?
Yeah.
Huh. And so Trump liked him, and he ran for Senate in Pennsylvania and lost. And so this is uh, Trump
So
taking.
let me ask you about the gutters. I thought
Hey,
it was the landlord that's in
hey,
charge of the gutters.
hey, Ed. Um,
I mean, isn't that what your friend said also?
okay, hold on a second. I think I know how to do this.
Yeah, yeah, that
Okay, hold on, folks. I am gonna find Ed, and
all right.
uh, here it is. And I muted Ed.
Why?
I think because that's him talking in the background.
Nobody was asking you, I thought.
No.
Oh,
Um, okay, so Okay. Kennedy, in response to the attack from his own vice president, mate, candidate, defends Means and says anybody that attacks her are being shills for big food and other monstrous totalitarian powers. You see these people consuming each other in all the paranoid energies around them. The same thing might be said for Calley Means touting intuition. She is wary of people who are trying to silence our intuition. We've got to connect with our inner woo-woo and follow your intuition instead of expert advice. But Michelle Goldberg asked, well, what if the MAHA types intuit that there's something wrong with Dr. Means herself? So it's going to be a matter of being hoisted on your own petard, which I've just got this little riff on how to deal with the ongoing civil war. James Carville, his advice has always been play possum, and especially now, let the MAGA-MAHA civil war rage on. And it just brought to mind jiu-jitsu, where you use your opponent's energy to let them destroy themselves. I mean, Democrats are frustrated and have the feeling we should be doing something, but sometimes just lay back. And this was the famous rope-a-dope strategy. In our lifetime, we saw it deployed by Muhammad Ali in the Rumble in the Jungle. He allowed the ropes in the boxing ring to absorb the blows partially as a shock absorber. And he just let his opponent expend a lot of energy as he dodged, and as soon as his opponent, he saw that he was wearing out, he struck in the 11th round and won. And all this is an excuse for me to tout a wonderful movie, When We Were Kings, that it's a great documentary about the championship fight in Zaire, the so-called Rumble in the Jungle. It was part boxing, part music festival, and there were all these literary people, Norman Mailer, George Plimpton, but also people like Spike Lee and B.B. King and Don King and James Brown. It's a very good movie, and it's also is a great sports movie, just seeing the actual fight itself. I couldn't help but think, as I've been looking at Dr. Means and the Surgeon General, remember when we had a really honorable Surgeon General? He was a conservative, but he became a household name when he was managed the HIV/AIDS crisis with a president who was not initially sympathetic. He also did well on tobacco policy. And then more recently, Vivek Murthy, he was the Surgeon General for both Obama and Biden. He was good enough for both. And so he was there during COVID, towards the middle and end of COVID. And he also identified loneliness. Federal health officers Also, Francis Collins, he was the head of NIH, and I think a lot of us are familiar with his work initially on the human genome, where he partnered with a private sector initiative. And together they were honored under Clinton. And he went on and became the NIH director all these years. The other interesting angle on him is his religious belief. He's a born-again Christian, and he's written a book trying to bridge the gap between science and religion. And then this is Kennedy's forerunner, a real director of Health and Human Services, Governor Sebelius from Kansas, and she was there for the Affordable Care Act. So those were the good old days. Now, what we're living through, unfortunately, is farce. So, any other? I'll take a pause here, catch my breath, and see if anybody else wants to talk about the health team.
Hey, John, this is Tom. I got a question for you. It has nothing to do with your presentation right here, but and I think you're a doctor, and there might be a couple other guys who are doctors on this call. What do you guys think about the deal with President Biden and finding out just recently that he's got prostate cancer?
Yeah, and we talk about this in our little neighborhood group. It sounds terrible. He's got a very aggressive cell type, Gleason 9. You rank them from 1 to 10, and his is very aggressive. It's already metastasized to his bone, but I will just say this.
They're all doctors. Now talking about Biden and the.
Oh,
yeah. And so we're talking about Biden. And it sounds dire, and it may be, but it isn't necessarily dire. I know of a handful of people who have reached this stage of suddenly aggressive prostate cancer with bone mets. And the intervention that made a big difference was hormonal. And I noticed that Biden's cell type is hormone sensitive. So what does that mean? There's a balance between estrogen and testosterone in general. In males, obviously, it's more testosterone. In women, it's more estrogen. But we both have a little of each. And this, I've seen this kind of metastatic disease controlled with estrogen treatment. More specifically, it's turning off testosterone completely. And there are different ways of doing that. I won't go into detail, but the simple way of controlling that is with injections that turn off the source at the hypothalamus and pituitary, and it can really. So I practiced with a doctor who had this exact same presentation, and he lived for 7 years after that. So maybe that's too optimistic, but I'm just going to say it's possible. And I know of another 3 or 4 patients who've had a similar postponement. You can't cure it, but you can control it for another 5 to 7 years. Does that answer your question, Tom? Any other doctors jump in?
Well, well, here's sort of what I sort of want to know. I'm over 70 years old, and so the stuff I've been reading says, hey, at 70, you don't take a PSA test. So, like, if you're over 70 years old, how do you figure out if you might have prostate cancer?
Well, it's an interesting question, and the American Cancer Society and the U.S. Preventive Task Force on Prevention have been having this very debate for a number of years. And it would take the rest of the hour to summarize the debate. The idea of screening and when to screen and when to stop screening is age-based. And what you have to weigh with screening is all the false alarms and at some point the number of false alarms overwhelms the benefit. At least that's the argument. So I'm gonna let Jim take over.
Well, I thought you did an excellent job. I'm just going to add that it's not just the false alarms. That although Biden has an aggressive form, most are not aggressive. So getting a diagnosis at age 70 doesn't change your life expectancy much, because most are indolent and slow growing. And as you said, the interventions, you have to weigh the risks of intervention against the benefit. And, a lot of people get incontinent and impotent from the intervention. So, but this will prompt a hue and cry from the urology community for everyone to screen early and often and forever again. So it's a mixed bag, as we say. The other thing with Biden, though, that I'm actually more interested in is the cover-up of his cognitive decline while president, but that's another story.
Yeah, that's another story. The only thing I'd say about that is everybody's talking about how terrible he was, but remember he gave a State of the Union where he acquitted himself pretty well. He was being heckled by the Republicans, and he handled it deftly. Now that's very different. He probably anticipated being heckled and worked out what his responses were going to be. But it wasn't a slam dunk, and those of us that have reached 80 know that remembering names is pretty common problem, and so yeah. Anybody else want to comment on Biden?
Well, yeah. The thing is that I mean, PSA is limited for males, but breast mammograms are limited for females at age 70. Colonoscopies are limited at age 70. I don't know. We're being cut off.
Well, it's a good point, but Jim talked about the benefits and the risks. It's not simple.
Yeah.
Yeah, Bob.
For what it's worth, the National Health Service in the UK, which has a lot of pretty good data, I imagine, it covers 60 million people there. Yes, nearly 70 million. It has no routine screen for prostate cancer using PSA tests at all. Men over 50 can request a PSA test from their GP. It's not routine. And there must be a reason behind that.
Well, I'm very
over testing, over medication. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I'm very interested in the National Health and their recommendations, and they are super scientific because they have a limited budget. And they evaluate every intervention on its power to save a year of life and the cost per year of life for interventions. And they line them all up, and they're quite rigorous about with their limited budget getting the most bang for the buck. And these interventions are not necessarily the cheapest way to get a year of life. So that they have a special department that looks at this called NICE, NICE, and they're the ones that evaluate the efficiency and the cost effectiveness of spending prevention money. And so that's the national health. Yeah.
NICE, NICE,
Yeah.
was basically what was called in the introduction of Obamacare the death panel.
Yes, that's right. You're absolutely right. Good for you, Bob. You remember that. Yeah. Yeah, Tom.
Yeah, I just somebody made a comment about at 70 you don't get colonoscopies and you don't get mammograms. I'm not sure that's 100% correct because I'm a little bit strange, but I'm gonna have a colonoscopy after 70, and my wife she's 70 and older, and she's gonna continue to mammogram. So, Dr. Lee, what that other person said about cutting colonoscopies and mammograms off at 70, is that generally true or?
Kaiser.
Well,
Are you Kaiser?
Yeah, I'm going to say one last thing on this and we'll move on. I think what we're talking about is strictly screening recommendations. Now, if you've had a previous colonoscopy that had a polyp, even a benign polyp, if you're a polyp farmer, you may go on to a different extended screening schedule. Ditto for mammograms. If you've had any history of a positive mammogram, that's no longer screening. That you have a risk factor. So, and this is very complicated. We could spend a week on this. So I think I'm gonna.
So let me just summarize what you said there. So if you were clean on mammograms and colonoscopies up until the age of 70, at the age of 70, those two would not be recommended. Is that correct?
That's the U.S. Preventive Service Task Force would make that recommendation.
It used to be 75, John. Maybe they've changed it to 70. But the other thing is, if you're not expected to live more than 10 years, given your other health conditions, they may stop as well.
Okay, I got you. That's good. I'm done with this topic. Thank you.
Okay. All right. We don't mind. So anything this group wants to bring up, we're a study group, so we're flexible. It just, I think we've identified something that is really complicated, and Jim and I have tried to give you the factors that go into making recommendations.
One of the things about the recommendations is that if you insist on getting a PSA test, you can get one. The doctor might say, well, it's not recommended, but they're not going to say you can't get one.
Yeah.
Same with colonoscopy. I'm well over 80. I'm going to have a colonoscopy because I want to have one. I said, what if I get cancer a year from now? Or do you care about that? And they just look at me and said, okay, well, you can have a colonoscopy.
Well, and we know you're in pretty good shape, Ed. So, all right. Any other medical urgencies? All right. Well, let's at least get started with the geopolitics. Um, we've. I just want to update. Remember, we've talked about how China and Europe are getting closer to in trade, and especially now with America pulling back from Europe and the tariff fiasco. So there's this middle corridor that's been developed between China and Europe that bypasses Russia and advisedly so. Because you know, on the face value, Russia is all behind China, and China is all behind Russia. But that's not the way they're acting economically. So this middle corridor between China and Europe going up. Going through Turkey. So the Turkey countries are all on board with this, and the EU welcomes Chinese trade through Turkey, especially now that Putin's been so aggressive. And all the Turkic countries are more than happy to bypass Russia. Although there's a lot of illegal sanction avoiding activity that's going on through the stands, that's for sure. But they are welcoming this new traffic through the middle corridor. And once the goods get to Turkey, then the rail routes are there. And so I'm just reviewing this. Russia is a colony of China, period. So that's kind of, well, wait a minute. How do you get that inflammatory statement? By defining what a colony is. A colony sends its natural resources to the colonizer, who then sends the colony manufactured goods. And by that definition, Russia is a colony of China. And so all this was triggered for me by this article. Despite their show of solidarity in Moscow, Xi has Putin over a barrel. And this is one of the frontier towns between China and Russia. And if you look at the trade, you look and you see that Russian trade with China is very high, over a third, whereas Chinese trade, of all their trade with Russia is a much lower, just 4%. So China doesn't need Russia. Russia needs China. This imbalance, though, contrasts sharply with the psychological state of affairs. Russia's sense of its own importance is a legacy from the past, and it's no longer deserved. Twice as many Russians believe their country has greater influence in the world than those who think China does. But that's so obviously wrong. And it's this loss of confidence is getting worse. The people, Russians who feel that the relationship with China is improving, has fallen. And so let's look at this history. In the 19th century, Russia was industrializing and China was in decay. Many border towns between Russia and China around the 1900s were established so that Russia could get access to China's natural resources in Manchuria. Well, we just saw it's just exactly the opposite. China wants access to Russia's natural resources now. All throughout the 20th century and during part of our lifetime, the Soviet Union was the big brother to China's younger brother. And the ironies, though, of that unequal relationship are glaring now. So this is one border town. This is the Amur River. Here on the far side is China with a Ferris wheel, the whole thing, and then you have this shabby Russian town. And now it's obvious that the younger brother has pulled way ahead of the older brother. And trade really matters now to Russia because of why? Western sanctions, Putin's misadventure in Ukraine, and it's increasingly a misadventure, perceived as a misadventure. And then today's headline is interesting. Maybe we'll have something to talk about, but Trump's 2 hours with Putin maybe broke something. Who knows? But China in all this is playing hard to get. Russia wants to build a second oil pipeline so they can send more of their natural resources to China. But China is playing hard to get it. It wants to diverse its energy imports. And besides, China does fear American sanctions. So those sanctions are playing some role. They're not particularly interested in helping Russia modernize or diversify. So this is a switching of roles over what it used to be. Chinese investments in Russia, they're only 1% of Russia's GDP. And China almost has as much investment in Kazakhstan. Before Russia started its ill-begotten war, its relationship with the EU was not one of a colony, but now it is. China is increasingly ambivalent about Ukraine, and they are abstaining in the UN on most votes on over Ukraine. And China probably just looks at the rest of the world as barbarians anyway, and so at least historically they have. And so in their mind, it's like a barbarian king that has launched a war against a little barbarian brother. So, as I said, China's trying to cozy up to Europe. And another way they're doing it is they're dropping sanctions against EU parliamentarians. What's that about? Well, there's always been tension between China and Europe on human rights. And so the EU has not been bashful about targeting Chinese politicians who they think are not following common human rights norms. So they're lifting those. So that's the end of my spiel on geopolitics. Any questions? And I'll just forge on for a few minutes with Leo.
Yeah, this is Tom. I got a question.
Yeah.
So we talked about China and Russia. So let's, I don't know, I got my thoughts, but I don't have any facts or anything to back it up. But how's the United States comparing all this? I mean, sort of like the United States, we don't manufacture too many things these days. So, we get a lot of products from foreign countries. So how does the United States sort of fit in against the United States versus the rest of the world on, passing out natural resources and getting finished goods coming back into the country?
Yeah, and one of Pepper's slides addressed this. The number of workers that are involved in manufacture in the United States. But America still makes over 70% of its manufactured goods. And how do we do that with less workers, with automation?
70%?
Over 70.
Wow.
It used to, Ramsey asked me to do a presentation, 15 years ago. And at that point, it was 85%. So we still make the majority of our own stuff. So there's that. Of course, in our lifetime, the geopolitical triangle between America, the Soviet Union, and China, Nixon and Kissinger played that very deftly. And we wooed China away from the Soviet Union. And then with that success under our belts, Nixon reapproached Russia in a spirit of détente. Today, there are some people that bring that up and they say, hey, maybe with China now representing our chief rival, we should coax Russia away from China and that relationship. But that ignores completely Ukraine and the real changes on the ground in the economies that have changed. So that would be my summary. Do we really want to make 90% of our manufactured goods instead of 70%? Well, the problem is that right now there are hundreds of thousands of jobs in manufacturing that are going begging. They can't get people to work
in America.
And it's going to get worse when we get fewer immigrants. So there's that. All this is I think a wild goose chase. And the economist would say America should do what it does best and continue in its dominance in services. We don't, with services, we have a positive trade balance. We have a negative trade balance with manufactured goods, but it's more than offset, or close to offset, with services. And the cutting edge of technology is traditionally where we do the best. So that's my quick take on manufacturing.
Hey, John?
Yes.
Yeah, this is Bruce. Hey, the very interesting last night, Jon Stewart had a guest on his Monday night show, and he had a fellow by the name of Patrick McGee, and he was Apple in China was the subject of that book, and it's a whole book about how basically Apple has created this doing all of their work in China, and how they've been trying to diversify so that there is they're not looking like a monopolistic kind of
place. But at the same time, what they're saying is, Trump is trying to get us back over and doing all the manufacturing in the U.S. But what they're finding out is that, well, all the money that Google is going to spend in or sorry, not Google, Apple, is going to they're just going to buy back stock in order to keep their their holdings, making it look like we're doing such a great thing as far as getting manufacturing back into a thing. But it's a very interesting book, and a whole concept. It's 20 minutes of John Stewart interviewing this Patrick McGee.
All right. Well, we'll give that a look. Thanks, Bruce. Bob.
Well, I just follow up on what Ramsey and you've said, is that this is somewhat of a misapprehension about the United States' lack of manufacturing strength. The United States, I'm reading here from the Cato Institute, is responsible for 16% of global manufacturing. It's huge. And the loss of jobs, some have claimed in manufacturing, is 90% due to automation and 10% due to China. And just finally, yes, services, never in the formula, never in discussion. The United States exports $1 trillion a year in services.
Yeah, good points. Good points. All right, folks. Any other remarks before we leave? Poor Leo the 14th. We didn't quite get to him, but he'll wait.
Yeah, I guess this is Tom again. I guess the other thing is, I mean, we talk about manufacturing, but the other thing to think about is where we get our food from.
I think we're pretty self-sufficient in food.
I don't know. I've heard a lot of stuff comes from South America, and
How about
things.
whiskey from Canada?
Yeah. Okay. I haven't looked at that, but maybe we can talk about that next week.
We get South American food in our winter time, so it's a win-win.
Yeah.
John, I sent you the USPSTF latest on both mammography and colon cancer. I
Okay.
also noticed that the prostate firmly says no to screening after age 70 for PSA because the harms outweigh the risks.
Yeah.
But you can send that around or not, depending on. The other thing with colon cancer is, of course, that fecal tests are often accepted as a form. You
Right.
don't have to have a colonoscopy unless there's a family history or there are other polyps discovered, etc. There are a lot of criteria, but anyway, devil's in the details as usual.
All right.
Kaiser, that's one of the things they do every year, that you can send them a little poop sample, and then I don't know where it goes or who does what to who, but
Yeah, the original ones just look for blood, but now they can look for different proteins from cancer cells. So it's gotten a lot better. And I certainly am glad I'm over 75, so I don't have to do a prep for colonoscopy. Boy, that was murder. TMI. We call that TMI.
Yeah, too much information. Okay. All right, y'all.
well,
See
take
you.
care. Thanks, John.
Yeah,
Yeah.
John,
See you next week.
if you're lucky.
And the creeks don't rise. Good
San
to
Diego.
see you, Carol.
From San Diego, too.
Oh yeah, it'll be from San Diego.
Yeah.
You certainly get around.
Yeah.
But the technology, you've got the technology.
Yeah, there you go.
Where is that red button? Leave. There we go.
Well, wait a minute. I don't see that you sent me anything. And where did you send it to me, Jim?
I sent it to Aiko also.
Oh, okay. But
At
not.
Walnut Creek parents. Let's see. I'll look at my mail here.
No, no, it's okay. I thought I was looking in chat.